I'm not teaching, I'm publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in the UK test part 35. While learning about, and the chapter is now the Tudors and Stuarts, and I guess we have, just religious conflicts. So the Tudors and Stuarts, religious conflicts, that is on page 22. While doing a bit standing yoga and participating in these yoga exercises, is at your own risk. But before we are starting with the chapter, or the whole chapter is way longer. Life in this is just a long and illustrious history. So the chapter is a long and illustrious history, and that section or whatever is when the Tudors and Stuarts, and out of that section we're making religious conflicts. But first we have some questions here. The effects of the Black Death should we know. Now the Black Death was in 1348, and that was a form of plague, and it is called the Black Death. A third of the population died, that is an important effect. Now the other effects are not written that precisely to really answer that question. But let's start what we actually have. In 1348, a disease, probably a form of plague, came to Britain. That is no effect. Okay, it came to Britain, but that is not an effect. This was known as the Black Death. Technically, that is an effect, that there's a new word or a new phrase for something, but I don't think they mean that a new word appeared. 1/3 of the population of England died, and a similar proportion of Scotland and Wales. That is an effect. So 1/3 of the population of England, Scotland and Wales died. So we have effect number 1. 1/3 of the population died. This was one of the worst disasters ever to strike Britain. That is not the direct, that is basically part of the first effect. Following the Black Death, the smaller population meant there was less need to grow cereal crops. Cereal crops. Okay, 1/3 of the population died, and if someone needs more words in the essay, that means there was a smaller population. So, but now, because there was a smaller population, less cereal crops had to be grown. But I'm not sure if it is an answer which we want. Effects of the Black Death. Less cereal crops had to be grown. It's almost black humor, and not something about the Black Death. Now, let's start with the standing yoga. We're having the legs standing a bit more shouldered wide apart, breathing in and lifting the arms up. And we're breathing out and we're leaning back, and we're opening the chest up to the sky. And again in. And out, and we're leaning again back. And breathe in and come up. Now close the legs and the feet. And we're leaning again back. This is the sheet in the bed. And breathe again in into the middle. And again out, and we're leaning again back. And again in into the middle. And out. And next exercise will be a bit of warrior. But we were just here by a black humoristic answer about the Black Death. If someone would write that there are less cereal crops had to be grown. Effect number 2. Less agriculture was necessary, but there were also less, I'm wondering the whole time, there were less people living, so less people were doing agriculture. So yes, the total amount of food necessary was not so big because of that very dire cause, but there were also less people. You could say there was more place to grow crops or something like that, but less. I'm on the wrong page. There was less need to grow cereal crops. But there was certainly a time before when there were also less people living, and still had more or less the same proportion of the population had to do agriculture. And here's nothing written about developments in agricultural farming methods. Less crops had to be grown, less cereal crops. There were labor shortages, so to less work. Is that meant, so that means it isn't so precise. So there were labor shortages, and peasants began to demand higher wages. That are probably 50 years, which are in one sentence here, and I'm not sure if it all has to do with the other thing. Was there a labor shortage because there wasn't so much crops to grow. Or has nothing to do with that. It's a new sentence. And peasants began to demand higher wages. Is it a cause of a Black Death that the farmers, the peasants demanded higher wages? Or wages? Wages? Just wages? New social classes appeared. Okay, we can say that is an effect. But maybe we are 2 sentences further. Maybe what happens 100 years later, it is not an effect of a Black Death. Including owners of large areas of land, later called the gentry, and people left the countryside to live in the towns. That might be an effect of the Black Death, that people left the countryside and had gone into the towns. In the towns, growing wealth led to the development of a strong middle class, and a strong middle class developed through growing wealth in the towns. Okay, in Ireland, the Black Death killed many in the Pales of the region around Dublin, and for a time the area controlled by the English became smaller. So the area controlled by the English on Ireland became smaller because many people died in the area called Pale. It is not really the stuff out of which essays are written. So the one really effect we know about the Black Death is death. 1/3 of the population of Scotland, Wales and England died. That's the only real effect. Now we can speculate further on this. Less cereal crops had to be grown, that was written here also. Okay, that's the second one. And that people, there was a labor shortages, but they demanded higher wages, but they left the countryside and had gone into the towns, that greater land owners called gentry, greater land areas controlled by one person or something like that, it had arisen and called gentry, and in Ireland, what was it? Many people in the area called Pale died, and that had the effect that for a time, the area controlled by the English became smaller, but just for a time. So is that an effect we should take of a Black Death as our knowledge of that Black Death with us? That for some time, not written here, for 5 years, 5 months, 50 years, maybe 100 years or 200 years, the controlled region by the English became smaller. If it were permanent and had something to do with the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland and all that, then yes, that would be an effect of the Black Death, but I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the Black Death. So the effects of the Black Death were death and less need to grow cereal crops, even though I understand that reason. And maybe even later labor shortages and the people demanding higher wages, the people going into the town, where a strong middle class developed out of the wealth, and large gentry started to arise. Let's do the whole here. We are having the legs standing like that, so the toes of one leg are pointing in that direction, the other toes in that direction. We're breathing in and lifting our arms up, and we're doing all these exercises slowly and sensible. We're breathing in, and out, we are bending the knee. Let's go away. And now we're breathing in, and out, and we're bringing the arm and we're leaning here onto that one leg. And now breathe in, and out, back into the warrior. And breathe in, and out, one hand comes down the leg, and the other arm comes up, and we're looking upwards. And breathe in, and straighten a bit the leg which is in front, and out, and sink again down. And breathe in, and out, bring into the warrior. Breathe in, and out, we are bending the warrior. Now we're doing the same warrior to the other side. So the toes of that leg are pointing in that direction, the toes of that leg enter that direction. We are breathing in, lifting the arms up, and out, we're sinking in front. And breathe in, and out, leaning again back, the arm comes over. And breathe in, and out, back into the warrior. Now breathe in, and out, we're leaning back. And breathe again in, and out, back into the warrior for last time. Breathe in, and we're ending the warrior. Let's do the last exercise. We have talked quite a lot about the Black Death, so we're going to do one exercise more. The standing getting up. The feet are standing more or less together, have an inch space between the toes. We're breathing in and lifting the... No, wait on. We're breathing in and we're sinking down, and we're placing the hands on the knees. Now breathe in, and out, and we're holding the back. Breathe in, come into the middle, and out into the cow, and maybe you should do this exercise a bit slow. So breathe in, and out into the cat. in into the middle, and out into the cow. And last one, breathe in, and out into the cat, and in, out into the cow, in into the middle, and we're just coming back. So that was the last exercise. Let's do the final exercise, and then we're looking what else we have, but we don't have much time left. So we're having the feet standing together, we're breathing in and lifting the arms up. And we're breathing out and doing the down diving swan. Now breathe in and come half up with the back into monkey half lift with a straight back. And breathe out and come again down. Again, halfway up. And breathe in. And out again down. Breathe in and we're doing the up diving swan. And out. That was a bit of standing. Some of the effects of a black death. A third of the population of Scotland, Wales and England died, and less crops had to be grown, cereal crops. There was a labour shortage. People demanded higher wages, where people left the countryside and went into the towns, where wealthy middle class developed. And in Ireland, in a region called Pale, also many people died, and the area controlled by the English got smaller. The development of English language and culture. We really don't have enough to explain anything about such a rich culture as the English is. All we know about the culture is a bit of books, but that is mostly about language gewesen. It was a bit about books, about language, and a bit about the windows, the York Minster. And we had a bit about religion, and that new castles were built, like Windsor and Edinburgh, which are still standing. And that Link Cathedral was built. What do we else have for culture? Not so much. We have a bit more about language. So we can almost absolutely not answer that question, how the English culture developed. We can say a bit to the English language. So there was Celtic spoken during the Iron Ages, as similar to Europe, when the Anglo-Saxons and the Jutes came to England, and that had an influence on the modern English. The Persians were speaking around 1200. We don't have it written here. We don't have it when it was. Let's say around there was something after the Norman Conquest. The Norman Conquest was in 1066. So let's say 1100. The Persians were speaking were speaking Anglo-Saxon. Words like summer, cow, and apple are based. So these modern words, summer, apple, and cow, are based on Anglo-Saxon words which the Persians spoke, and words like beauty and park. And park are which the ruling class, the king and the lord, speaking Norman French. And there are oftentimes two words in the English language, one from Norman French and one from French was here written, and here we have one from French, so we skip the Norman part, so from the French and from the Anglo-Saxon. So for example, demand is from French, demand, and from ask is from Anglo-Saxon, two words with the same meaning, or more or less the same meaning. And by 1400, that's important, we have quoted this here, by 1400 official documents, the royal court and the parliament had started to speak or write in English. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales around 1400, published by William Caxton, who was the first person to print with a new invented printer press. New invented didn't stand here. And another of the things was Scottish was also, but here in Scotland, many people continued to speak Gaelic, and the Scots language also developed. And for example, John Babur, that part I wanted to go back to. John Babur, I hadn't really remembered that name. John Babur, he wrote the Bruce about the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, when Robert the Bruce's army defeated the English. So John Babur, it's probably pronounced differently, John Babur. And yes, that is what we have to language. We have one question left, but so we can title it with religious conflicts. We're going to read the first sentence, just for fun. After his victory in the Wars of the Roses, Henry VII wanted to make sure that England remained peaceful and that his position as king was secure. Now, but where we have done something actually to the religious conflicts, or not, but to the Tudors and Stuarts. And when we go to the second part, to religious conflicts and Tudors and Stuarts, we will answer the last question to the other thing I don't understand. I thank you very much, and until next time.